Hey everybody, welcome to the Scentatar Fragrance channel. You've come to the right place. If you're new to my channel, you're very welcome here. Thank you for coming. If you're a subscriber to my channel, thanks for coming again. If you find you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Even share the video, as always. Let's jump into this review. Today is a house review. I'm gonna tend not to do these too much because I would like to review the fragrances individually by themselves to give you a representation of them and to be able to more easily find them on YouTube. But let's dive into the fragrance. Today we're going to be talking about a fragrance house called Memo. Now Memo is a niche house, so these fragrances are more on the expensive side. Their fragrances generally, if you find them discounted, are about $150 or so, and I think they can even be closer to the $200 range, even $250 if you buy full retail. So these fragrances are not cheap. But is the quality here? Is this for a fragrance lover? Can this be worth the money? If you're new to fragrances, or if you aren't into niche fragrances, I have other reviews for you, top 10 designer list, and I definitely do talk about designers. But there is a niche. There are people who seek out fragrances like these, who don't mind spending the money, and it's something they love and enjoy. So this video might be for you, or if you just like to try a sample and you're curious about my interpretation of them, my opinion of them, this is what it's all about. So let's get into it. I have 4 of them today, and I think they're the most popular of the house. But of course they have other fragrances as well, and I hope to smell them in the future. The first one we have, of course these are all decants, I don't have the full bottles. The first one we have here is French leather. Now, thinking about French or the nation of France, you may automatically think classy, suave, fashionable. I have them sprayed on the cards, but this is a very interesting leather fragrance. I think I can say with confidence that there's no other leather fragrance like it. It opens up with a green, I believe it's a tomato leaf accord, and this fresh, almost garden greenness kind of permeates through the fragrance. The leather is light, it's approachable. The fragrance overall smells clean. I do think it smells sophisticated. There's a little bit of a kind of a soft feel. It's not powdery, but it almost has a soft feel. It doesn't have sweetness, so I don't think it's tonka, but all these fragrances are complex. Memo does leather very well, very approachable leather. Tom Ford is a niche brand for I would say, and their fragrances are more on the alluring side, more on the attractive and perhaps sensual smelling fragrances. I think these fragrances are more on the sophisticated and perhaps normal wear side. They don't have that kind of personality of Tom Ford. So this leather fragrance, I think, starts us off very well. These are approachable leathers you could wear every day around people. They're still going to be appealing to other people and not off-putting really. Now, let's talk about how this fragrance is going to smell to other people. A lot of people like to talk about compliment factors. This fragrance, I think, is not going to be a compliment magnet. Now, it does smell good. I think it's more for a mature man, and it's going to be great. If you are a man, a more mature man, who wants a leather fragrance he can wear every day, who has suits, who likes to read a lot, perhaps you like to wear a lot of brown leather, this fragrance is classy. If you're French, I'd feel, at least in my opinion, that this is something you would like. And I do think it's a worthy fragrance. I would try it out though. I think it's more for a mature audience. It's a little bit green. The leather isn't pronounced. It's not suede-like particularly, but it's definitely not a raw leather either. It's not aggressive. It's the softness is what permeates through the fragrance here a lot to me. And now that softness isn't tonka. It almost smells like a more rounded ambergris, but I don't think this fragrance has ambergris in it, and it's definitely not salty. So a very interesting leather fragrance, a very artistic one, but it's blended very well. It's high quality for sure, and that's French leather. Let's jump to the next one. This is Irish leather. Now, if we're thinking about Ireland and the House of Memo, we're going to get plains and fields, just like they represent here with a horse. We're going to get a beautiful countryside, just freshness overall. And that's really a lot of what I get out of this fragrance. This fragrance has a little bit of greenness as well, but this greenness isn't kind of a garden variety. It's more of a grassy quality, and I really do enjoy this about this fragrance. If you're a guy who liked or wanted to like CH212 Man and thought the grassiness wasn't there or wasn't authentic enough, like myself, this is a good grass smell. And I know that sounds odd in a fragrance. Why do you want to smell like grass? You can go grab grass and you throw it on yourself, and you don't have to pay $200. But it is a fantastic grass smell. I think that this, and perhaps a lot of the Memo line, because they're complex and they're artistic in a way that you could have a fragrance memory attached to this. It could bring you and teleport you to another time and another place. So, Irish leather, is, I would say, a tiny bit earthy. Instead of the softness that comes through with fresh leather, you get like a little bit of earthiness. Perhaps you could think of a barn, not a dirty barn, not a disgusting barn, just kind of it doesn't smell dusty, but it gives the interpretation of earth. And with that fresh green plains, it's the kind of smell that might be nostalgic for you. I do think this is a good fragrance. I do think that this one is perhaps even a little bit harder to wear than French leather. I think French leather is classy, can be pulled off in fancy social situations if you're the right kind of guy. But this fragrance is just on a league of its own. Now, if you liked or smelled Lalique Equus, and you thought that one was too bold, or you wanted something more sophisticated, I do think that this is a good fragrance for you. And again, this one is very interesting. It's just soft green grass. You got the earth. You got a woody kind of smell in the base, and it just permeating through. It's well rounded. It's well blended. It's definitely quality. It's just hard to describe. If you think of Ireland, perhaps this is what Ireland smells like if you were digging into the earth a little bit, or riding a horse just kicking up the grass behind it. So I do feel like this fragrance has the tiniest touch of an animalic smell, but it's not musky, it's not sweaty at all. I do feel like it has just the tiniest touch. So it has a little bit more of a kind of like that vibrant, kind of tantalizing smell to it. So it's a good fragrance. Again, this is a niche, and niche isn't for everyone, but it's great to try them out and smell them. So the next one we're going to talk about is African leather. Now, African leather, I already know, and perhaps you know, that this, I believe, is the darling of the house. This is the most popular. Now, African leather is a wonderful fragrance. I think it's the most easiest to wear. This is a slightly resinous fragrance, meaning it has amber-like notes, but they did it very well. It doesn't smell syrupy. It doesn't smell heavy. It has the right amount of spice to be pleasant and playful, but it still, I think, has a little bit of a seriousness and a backbone. If you liked wonderful fragrances like Baldafrique by Byredo, or even Timbuktu by Les Artisans, which I highly recommend, this is another great African fragrance. It has spices that smell a little bit woody. They're uniquely African feel. The resinous, kind of the incensey vibe is done very well here. You almost get a tiny sense of sweetness. It's not a sweet fragrance by any means, but it has a little bit of almost like the skin of a berry type of approach coming through. You can find that vibe in Polo Red if you smelled it. Of course, Polo Red does have more sweetness. But besides that, I mean, I digress. African Leather is a beauty. It's a great fragrance. It is artistic, but I think it's easier to pull off. This one, I think, like most of them, I feel are more masculine leading. But if you're a confident lady, I think that you could pull these off, especially African Leather. It's a confident fragrance, but it is very nice. It's a little bit spicy. It's a little bit comforting. If you smelled Creed Viking and said it wasn't for you, and you wanted that fragrance that was a little bit like a little bit resinous and a little bit playful and a little bit spicy, perhaps smelled a little bit classy, almost vintage, but you know, a modern interpretation of kind of that kind of fragrance. You know, very distantly, perhaps like allspice. This is a great one. So I highly recommend this fragrance for you if that's what you're looking for. So, kudos to Memo. You created a really great fragrance here. I can't talk about that one or share it enough. So, the next one is Russian Leather. Now, I saved this one till the last because I wanted to give my personal thoughts about this one. This one shows a little bit more of my personal bias regarding this fragrance. Not because I'm Russian or anything like that. It's just because I like the smell personally the most. Russian Leather is a very interesting fragrance. They categorize their fragrances when you get a sample on the top, and this one's categorized as a frozen fougere. When we talk about frozen flankers, or you know, original fragrances that are, and then they make a frozen or a cold adaptation of it, usually means it has cooling qualities, perhaps some menthol. They made it a little bit fresh and gave it a little bit of softness. That's what you're going to get in this fragrance, guys. You're going to get a very light, very approachable leather. It's actually a pretty faint. You're going to get a little bit of juniper, a little bit of greenness, kind of like an evergreen quality to it. Again, it's all this is very well blended. It's smooth. You get a little bit of, this one does have a little bit of muskiness in the base, and it does seem to have a little bit of a cool nature to it, and it has a nice amount of a little bit of freshness to it. So if you're a mid-aged man, about 30 or so, and you wanted a fougere for yourself, but something different, something that isn't old, something that you can call your own, this is the kind of fragrance I'd recommend for you. I'm beginning to like this one more and more. It's really grown on me over time. It's a little bit musky, becomes a nice skin scent, and I guess that's where we can leave off before I talk about performance and my closing thoughts about this fragrance. I do recommend it, guys. It's it's more of a natural smell, and it's closer to the skin. So with performance, I would say that you're not, for the most part with these fragrances, it's not gonna project after the first 30 minutes or an hour at least. It's gonna be closer to the skin, perhaps elbow length, so people won't be able to smell you unless they're fairly close to you. But they're modern and artistic. I love when a fragrance house can pull that off, when they, do fragrances that are artistic, they're different, they have their own character, but they still are appealing enough that they're not too abstract, they're not too difficult to wear, and they can be enjoyed by those around you. So I think Memo is able to do that, but they are skirting of the on the line, or getting close to the point of being perhaps avant-garde or too different, too abstract for the majority or the masses of people to smell you. I don't think you would offend with these fragrances by any means, and I really want to put that out there. If you want an approachable leather, if you want a leather that's not going to offend, these fragrances do it. I think the performance could be better. They do linger for a long time, but real longevity of the fragrance is 5 or 6 hours. But as a skin scent, they linger and linger on for 7, perhaps 8. So as far as performance goes, you might get 30 minutes of fair projection, and then they're fairly close to the skin for 6, maybe 7 hours or so. So again, that isn't the kind of performance that a lot of people like. Please understand what these fragrances, what they're about, their style, what they're trying to do. So if these fragrances are for you, if you like how they come across, let me know. Let me know in the comments below if you liked me reviewing a whole house, giving my interpretations of them, exploring a number of fragrances at once. Let me know if you just want shorter reviews. I can make shorter reviews, of course, and of individual fragrances. So until next time, guys, I thank you, for coming here to the Scented Dark Fragrance channel. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.